The introduction of pink salmon into the Great Lakes, particularly Lake Superior, represents a compelling case study on inadvertent ecological establishment and adaptive persistence. Unlike the native lake trout and brook trout, which have historically dominated the cold water niche of Lake Superior, pink salmon, a species native to the Pacific drainage, have developed a self-sustaining, naturalized lacustrine population in the fresh waters of Lake Superior with minimal human intervention. Though typically not as favored as their related coho and king salmon, pinks make fine table fare before they enter the streams and their final spawning phase, often caught during the summer months as indistinguishable from coho. Pink salmon are, in fact, the most consumed canned salmon species in the United States and world, and the most commercially sustainable Pacific salmon species. Only Atlantic salmon sales of fresh salmon are more economically significant as a food source. In 1955, the Port Arthur Hatchery in Thunder Bay, Ontario, raised pink salmon eggs from the Skeena River in British Columbia, which the hatchery intended to stock the fish in Hudson Bay for sport and commercial fishing. Not long after, however, about 100 pink salmon escaped while being transferred from the hatchery to a seaplane, and more significantly, another 21,000 surplus fingerlings were released into the Current River, a tributary of Lake Superior. The first evidence of reproduction in Lake Superior was in 1959, when two second-generation fish were caught, and pink salmon have since spread throughout the Great Lakes. They are most commonly seen in late summer and early fall when they spawn in rivers and gravel and coarse sand. After spawning, female scrapes out a nest, referred to as a redd, and lays her eggs. A male joins her, and they release eggs and sperm simultaneously. The female will then cover the eggs by digging upstream. Both fish die after spawning. Typically, pinks spawn not far from the mouths of rivers, making the shortest travel upstream of almost any salmonid that returns to a river or stream for spawning. These pink salmon, among others in the Great Lakes, are the only entirely freshwater pink salmon living anywhere in the world. Pink salmon typically have a 2-year life cycle, the shortest of all the Pacific salmon in North America. However, the cold waters of Lake Superior have delayed this cycle in some populations, and it's believed to have led to an extra year in the lake before spawning, and hence it's been observed since the late 1970s in North Shore streams that there are runs of pink salmon every year, as opposed to every other year runs that historically typically would correspond to odd years. But as they naturalize to their new ecosystem, they may spend 2, sometimes 3, and less commonly as many as 4 growing seasons in Lake Superior before returning to spawn. And the difference in runs per odd and even years is only a little heavier in odd years today. Though no current studies on the subject exist, to the best of our knowledge, one can imagine the potential for genetic mixing will assist the naturalizing populations, find genetic diversity for longer-term genetic viability of local stocks. Conventional fish biology paradigms had suggested that anadromous species, such as pink salmon, would struggle to complete their life cycle in a wholly freshwater system, especially a low forage system such as Lake Superior. It wasn't expected that the available baitfish populations would fulfill the needs of these rapidly maturing salmonids. However, their tolerance for variable environmental conditions facilitated an unexpected persistence, coupled to their obligate 2-year life cycle. Over successive generations, pink salmon have demonstrated an ability to successfully exploit the cold, well-oxygenated tributaries of Lake Superior, which provide an analogous spawning habitat to their native Pacific range. And, by the late 20th century, pink salmon had extended their range into other Great Lakes, notably Lakes Michigan and Huron. Their establishment is particularly remarkable given their reliance on natural reproduction rather than hatchery supplementation. This distinguishes them from other introduced species, such as Chinook salmon and coho salmon, which require stocking programs to maintain viable populations. From an ecological standpoint, pink salmon exhibit a relatively low disruption potential compared to other non-native species. Unlike Chinook or coho salmon, which exert significant predation pressure on alewife and other forage fish, the pink salmon's diet remains largely opportunistic, consisting of plankton, aquatic invertebrates, and smaller fish. Hence, the lower trophic level dependence minimizes ecological disturbances. This has mitigated competitive displacement effects on native and economically valuable species. From a fisheries perspective, pink salmon typically represent ancillary rather than primary targets for some recreational anglers. Nevertheless, their late summer and early autumn spawning migrations contribute to the seasonal diversity of the Lake Superior sports fishery and is a much-loved angling opportunity for many, ranging from 1 to 3 pounds. Their smaller size and less aggressive angling behavior render them less sought after than steelhead, browns, or other salmon, but are an excellent beginner species for those learning the art of fishing. Even though pinks will come to the surface, recommendations more commonly are to fish at a lower depth in the water column, such as with a weighted streamer, a beadhead woolly-bugger, small nymphs sizes 12 to 20, in clear water such as Frenchies, pheasant tails, and copper johns, or bright egg patterns such as glowbugs in faster, dirtier water, as well as spawn bags and various worm presentations are popular. Pinks, frequently called humps by fishermen who pursue them in their fall habitat, are called so due to the protuberance exhibited by males reaching sexual maturity. Fishing for them on the North Shore is done frequently by searching the mouths and lower extremes of small streams for sight fishing opportunities, and casting upstream to present lures to fish, often hiding behind the structure of logs or large rocks. Though many lures and presentations are popular, the colors bright pink, orange, and chartreuse are popular colors for jigs and flies cast to these sport fish. The primary difference between these and other migratory salmon is they tend to spawn closer to the lake and are much less likely to pursue any acrobatics in their ascent of streams, stopping at barriers that may not prevent other more athletic trout and salmon from going further upstream. And, though the current Minnesota state record is a respectable 4.5 pounds at nearly 24 inches long, caught in the Cascade River in 1989, these fish have some room to improve that record threshold locally, as the record-sized fish in the Pacific is almost 10 pounds greater, with fish reaching 32 inches or more. As climate change continues to influence water temperatures and hydrologic cycles in the Great Lakes Basin, the long-term viability of pink salmon remains uncertain, with rising thermal values and shifting precipitation patterns that could constrain their reproductive success, or, alternatively, expand their range and success, depending on localized environmental responses. Given their resilience to environmental variability, pink salmon may serve as a useful model for understanding the ecological resilience and regeneration of freshwater ecosystems, despite their fortuitous origins, and betting in their favor is probably already proven better than betting against. Ultimately, the persistence of pink salmon in Lake Superior demonstrates the complex interplay between unintentional introduction events, evolutionary adaptability, and ecosystem dynamics. Their presence, though inadvertent, underscores the capacity of non-native species to integrate into novel environments with minimal ecological antagonism, and challenges traditional models and assumptions about freshwater fisheries management. However, this is not an endorsement of thoughtless exotic species introductions. And now that we've got your gears tumbling, do us a favor and smash the like and subscribe buttons. Thanks again for your support of the channel.